I think he felt there was no other choice but to step back from it and say, I have to leave something in this community as opposed to leaving empty space. I really think as a group we have the potential, the skill sets of these folks from Burning Man are such that we could actually put our heads together and possibly rebuild a house, participate in some kind of project that leaves them.
Did it build over time, and there was a straw that broke the camel's back, or was it like, okay, I can't do this?
I don't know that I don't know that the decision to build Tony's house was necessarily a snap one. I think it may have been brewing around in Richard's head for a while. I can remember a day or two or a point in time where he would just be so exhausted after the day, where he would honestly say, I don't know how I can do this tomorrow. So maybe he was processing it in his head, how he could leave something in the community positive, and that's where perhaps at that point at the point when Richard started to get really exhausted, he came up with the idea to begin recycling lumber and items from the homes. I think it really was hard for him to see these houses that had very salvageable, very usable pieces of wood or bathtubs or beams or all sorts of tin roofs or copper tubing or anything that had to go to waste, be pulled out, dumped in these debris piles, and go to a landfill somewhere. So I think he came up with the idea, perhaps with the assistance of some others, likely, to start recycling materials out of homes. Once they had the recycled materials, what were they going to do with them? This then became the question, and I think that it evolved into the idea, well, let's build our friend Tony a house. And I think that's good. Okay. Next.
Well, how about, I know it was an awful lot of fun doing all this work, but can you talk a bit about some of the bad things, some of the difficulties?
Oh, none of it was bad or difficult. It was also fun. Really, Heather. We loved it.
What was it like mucking out of the house?
Yeah, it's hard on people, right?
Walk us through in your mind.
Okay.
How even if you're just talked about your group.
I am, because they didn't muck. You'd get a phone call or a visit from a person who would ask you if you could come and clean their house out. You get the address, you bring your volunteers the next morning, your supplies, which were wheelbarrows and shovels, rubber boots, crowbars, nail pry bars. You'd show up at the house with all your equipment. You get to the front door. Half the time the front door hadn't been opened yet. Half the time the front door couldn't be opened because there was so much furniture and debris stacked behind the door. You'd pry the door open, or you'd go in through a window. A lot of times we busted out windows to get in. Once I climbed a tree to get onto a porch because the stairs had washed away. I once went in through a skylight. You get in however you can get in to get into the house. First thing you got to do is clear a safe entranceway. Because I was in charge of my volunteers, a number of times when we arrived in homes that had black mold, I wouldn't allow them in until I had treated the walls with bleach, because whether we had respirators or masks or not, the black mold was still there, and I didn't want people in homes that had it. One of the first steps was to pour bleach all over the refrigerators, because they would almost always inevitably be turned on their side, cracked, and the smell was very, very difficult to deal with. We've all talked about the stench. I had many, many volunteers who got sick and threw up.
Tell us about the stench. You say we've all talked about the stench.
Okay.
I want to hear it from
Okay. The smell of this famous smell of the refrigerators, the famous smell of the houses and the homes. Entering a house that had been under 25 feet of standing water, hadn't been breached in 4 weeks. the smell in some of the homes was a result of rotting seafood, because you're in a very, very oceanic area. People had shrimp stored in their deep freezes, 200 pounds of shrimp. There's nothing that smells quite as awful, I imagine, except perhaps a dead body, than 200 pounds of rotting shrimp that has been left there in the heat for 4 weeks. It turns into this thing that burns your eyes. It burns your throat. You breathe in and you feel it in your lungs. It's nauseating. It's sickening, and it's something that some people literally are unable to deal with. So no one was ever forced to stay in a home and work if the smell was such that they couldn't handle it. And there were points in time when everyone felt they couldn't handle it. It was horrible. There's also a particular smell that's a mixture of mud and sewage and petroleum kind of products and things that would have come up out of your pipes and come out of your gas stove and come out of your cleaning products, and then mixed in with food debris also that unfortunately you would occasionally find yourself flat on your fucking ass in, because you'd slipped and fallen, because it's a sludgy, nasty mess that you're walking through in a pair of rubber boots as well. So you're lying on your back in the worst smelling thing you could ever have imagined, going, my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? How did this happen to me? This is so disgusting. And the smell did not leave your skin. It would not come off of you. It would get into your hair. Most of us would take clothing from a distribution center, and I apologize for that, but we would wear them as many days as we could and throw them away. You could never have washed those clothes again. You could never have gotten that out of them. You would throw them away. Once people started burning things, it was kind of fun to burn those clothes. Is that stinky enough? Okay. You would get inside of a house, you would find the cracked refrigerator, you would pour bleach down so that you could deal with the smell. Then you would begin bringing in appliance dollies. You would take all the white debris, which were refrigerators, dishwashers, washers and dryers. They all ended up in their own special landfill. Those would be set out in the front. You would treat the refrigerator as carefully as you could if it wasn't already cracked. You would duct tape the hell out of it and pray that it didn't start leaking. Get it outside. Then you would start to remove the furniture. Then you would pull up the rugs. Then you would start to remove the appliances, such as toilets. You would remove the cabinets. Then you would remove the sheetrock. Then you would remove the insulation from the ceiling. By the time you were finished, you had an empty skeleton of a home. It was completely gutted, brought down to the studs, every nail pulled out, the beams washed down with bleach for the mold, and someone's home was ready for rebuilding. But it was a very mixed, very sad, tragic kind of thing, as well as a hopeful thing. It was pretty strange like that.
How long would it take your group to tear down, to muck out a house like that?
It would take a group of, let's say, on an average, eight volunteers, 1 to 2 days to bring a house down, depending on the size of it. So you would, let's say, a 1,500 square foot house, it would take 1 to 2 days for 8 volunteers to get it all the way down and ready to go, which was quite an amazing thing. It was very sad to realize that there were individuals out there charging money to people to gut their houses, as much as $100 a square foot in the beginning. And we were providing the service for free. It was really, really just, what a bunch of dicks, you know?
And what, you talk about how your group works.
Mm-hmm.
Compare your group to the burners.
Okay.
What was it?
Yeah, I can just compare a lot. You know, the Burning Man group was particularly special for a lot of reasons. I feel like I worked with a very special group as well, but a lot of the other volunteer groups that I worked with and encountered, my own included, didn't have the same qualities of self-reliance and ability to have a community and a space there